The room froze beneath the pale glow of the ceiling lights. Rain hammered against the windows, drowning out every other sound except the sharp rhythm of everyone's breathing. Felix stood near the hallway with trembling hands, his golden hair slightly damp from the storm outside. His usually warm smile had disappeared, replaced by an expression no one had ever seen before. Hyunjin took a cautious step forward. "Felix, what's in the envelope?" Felix lowered his gaze without answering. It wasn't like him. He was the first to comfort everyone during difficult moments, the first to laugh when the atmosphere became awkward, and the last person anyone expected to hide something. Yet tonight his silence felt heavier than any explanation. Bang-chan noticed the subtle shake in Felix's fingers. "You've been avoiding us for weeks," he said quietly. "You barely sleep. You skip meals. Every night you disappear after everyone falls asleep. Tell us what's happening." Felix swallowed hard. "I'm fine." No one believed him. The lie sounded fragile, almost painful. Lee No folded his arms, studying Felix's face with unusual seriousness. The faint circles beneath Felix's eyes, the exhausted posture, and the way he instinctively protected the envelope. Inside his jacket painted a picture that words couldn't hide. Seungmin glanced toward the dorm entrance. "That's the third mysterious delivery this month." Changbin frowned. "And every time one arrives, Felix changes." Silence returned. The ticking clock echoed through the living room. Felix slowly backed away. "I just need some time." Hyunjin's voice softened. "You don't have to carry everything alone." Those words nearly broke him. For a brief second, his lips trembled as if he wanted to confess everything. Instead, he forced a weak smile that never reached his eyes. "You'll hate me if you know." The sentence struck the room harder than thunder outside. Han stared at him in disbelief. "What could possibly make us hate you?" Felix looked away. Memories flooded his mind. The first envelope had appeared nearly a month earlier, without a sender's name. Inside was only a single photograph and one handwritten sentence. Some truths should stay buried. Since then, more envelopes had arrived. Each contained another piece of a puzzle that only Felix understood. Each one dragged him deeper into fear. He had tried throwing them away, burning them, ignoring them. Yet another always appeared. Every single week. The final envelope had arrived only minutes before the argument. Felix knew what was inside before opening it. He wished he had been wrong. Bang-chan slowly extended his hand. "Please." Felix stared at him for several long seconds before carefully pulling the envelope from his jacket. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He wanted to trust them. He truly did. But if everyone discovered the truth hidden inside, nothing would ever feel the same again. He closed his eyes.
"I'm sorry." Before anyone could react, Felix tore the envelope into dozens of tiny pieces. White fragments scattered across the living room like falling snow. Hyunjin instinctively knelt to gather them, but every important sentence had already been ripped apart beyond recognition. Only one small piece remained readable. It landed near Bang-chan's feet. He picked it up. His expression slowly changed. Confusion became disbelief. Disbelief became fear. The fragment contained only 6 words. "He has never told you everything." Bang-chan read the torn fragment again, hoping his eyes had misunderstood the words. They remained unchanged. "He has never told you everything." The room fell into complete silence. Felix stood motionless near the entrance, unable to meet anyone's gaze. His breathing grew uneven, and for the first time, everyone noticed how exhausted he truly looked. It wasn't simply fatigue from rehearsals or schedules. It was the exhaustion of someone who had been carrying an unbearable burden completely alone. Hyunjin slowly rose from the floor, tiny pieces of paper still clutched in his hand. "Felix, what does this mean?" No answer. Only the distant rumble of thunder echoed outside. Lee No carefully watched Felix's expression. Every slight movement, the tightening of his jaw, the trembling of his shoulders, the hesitation before every breath, revealed emotions Felix was desperately trying to suppress. This isn't about the envelope anymore, Lino said quietly. You're scared. Felix finally looked up. For a brief moment, everyone saw something unfamiliar in his eyes. Fear. Real fear. I'm not scared for myself, Felix whispered. The sentence caught everyone off guard. Changbin frowned. Then who are you scared for? Felix's lips parted, but no words came out. His silence answered more than any confession could. Bangchan walked closer until only a few steps separated them. We're your family. I know. Then let us help. Felix shook his head almost immediately. You can't. Why? Because the moment you know everything... He stopped. His voice cracked. You'll become part of it. Nobody understood what he meant. Han exchanged confused glances with Xiongmin, while In instinctively stepped closer to Hyunjin. The atmosphere inside the dorm had shifted into something none of them could explain. It no longer felt like an ordinary misunderstanding between friends. It felt as though an invisible danger had quietly entered the room, long before anyone realized it. Felix slowly removed another object from his pocket. It wasn't another envelope. It was an old silver key. The metal surface was scratched with age, and a faded number was engraved on it. 27. Bangchan stared at it. Where did you get that? Felix turned the key over in his palm. It arrived with the first envelope. And you've never told us? I wanted to. His voice barely rose above a whisper, but every time I tried. He looked toward the rain-covered window. Something happened that made me stop. Hyunjin noticed Felix unconsciously gripping the key tighter. You've been carrying this every day. Felix nodded. I don't even know why. He closed his fingers around it. It just feels like if I lose it... His breathing became shallow. Everything will fall apart. No one laughed. No one questioned him. The fear in his voice sounded far too genuine. Bangchan gently reached toward the key. May I see it? After a long hesitation, Felix placed it in his leader's hand. The key felt surprisingly cold, almost freezing. Bangchan examined the engraved number before turning it over. Something was carved into the opposite side. Not a name, not a symbol. Just 3 words. Find room 27. Everyone stared at the inscription. No one spoke. Somewhere beyond the dorm walls, thunder rolled, once more as if the storm itself had been waiting for them to discover those words. Felix quietly closed his eyes, knowing that the secret he had tried so desperately to bury was beginning to reveal itself, piece by piece. Bangchan carefully turned the silver key between his fingers, tracing the engraved words with his thumb. Find room 27. No one recognized the number. Does it mean a hotel? Han asked quietly. A locker? Sungmin suggested. Or an apartment? In added. Felix slowly shook his head. I've searched everywhere. His voice sounded hollow, as though he had repeated those words to himself countless times before. I checked old buildings, storage units, even abandoned places. Room 27 doesn't seem to exist. Lino narrowed his eyes. Then why are you still carrying the key? Felix looked at it with an expression somewhere between fear and hope. Because every envelope told me not to throw it away. The words sent another wave of unease through the room. Hyunjin walked toward the torn pieces scattered across the floor. Most were unreadable, but one fragment had landed beneath the coffee table. He reached for it. Unlike the others, this piece contained more than a few words. It read, When the 7th day ends? The sentence stopped there. The remaining half had been ripped away. Hyunjin showed it to Bangchan. The 7th day? Felix immediately stiffened. His heartbeat echoed in his ears. You weren't supposed to see that. Bangchan looked up. Felix, please. When does the 7th day end? Felix didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced toward the digital clock mounted above the television. 11:43 p.m. His face grew noticeably paler. Tonight. The room fell silent once again. Changbin stared at him. You mean, today is the 7th day? Felix nodded. I hoped nothing would happen. And if something does? Felix inhaled slowly before speaking. I don't know. No one liked that answer. Outside, the rain suddenly stopped. The silence that followed felt unnatural. Even the wind had disappeared.
It was as if the entire city had paused. Then, a faint metallic sound echoed through the dorm. Click. Everyone froze. Bang-chan frowned. What was that? Another sound followed. Click, click. It came from somewhere inside the building. Not outside, not upstairs, inside. Ayan instinctively moved closer to the others. Did someone lock the front door? No, Sungmin whispered. The third sound was louder. Clang. This time everyone recognized it. It sounded exactly like a key turning inside an old lock. Felix's breathing became rapid. His eyes widened with unmistakable panic. No. Hyunjin looked at him. What is it? Felix backed away until his shoulders touched the wall. It always starts with that sound. Bang-chan tightened his grip on the silver key. What starts? Before Felix could answer, every light inside the dorm flickered at once. Darkness swallowed the room for only a second before the lights returned. The television, which had been turned off all evening, suddenly powered on by itself. Static filled the screen. A harsh buzzing noise echoed through the living room. Then the static disappeared. A single image appeared. It wasn't a television program. It wasn't a broadcast. It was a live camera feed. The 7 members stared in disbelief. The camera was showing a narrow hallway with faded white walls. At the end of the hallway stood a weathered wooden door. A brass plate was fixed to its center. On it, one number gleamed beneath the flickering light. 27. The image on the television remained perfectly still. No movement. No sound. Just the endless hallway leading to the weathered wooden door, marked with the number 27. The static had disappeared entirely, replaced by an eerie silence that filled the dorm. Changbin slowly stepped closer to the screen. Is this a recording? Bang-chan shook his head. I don't think so. The timestamp blinking in the corner of the television changed every second. Danifta recording. Ken. 16. It was live. Han instinctively grabbed the remote and pressed every button. Nothing happened. The television ignored every command. The image never changed. Felix's breathing became increasingly uneven. I've seen this hallway before. Every head turned toward him. Hyunjin frowned. What do you mean? Felix stared at the screen without blinking. I've dreamed about it. The words sounded almost impossible to believe. Every night since the first envelope arrived. Lee No remained calm. The same hallway? Felix nodded. The same door. His voice became quieter, and every dream ends before I can reach it. Bang-chan looked back at the television. What happens if you open the door? Felix closed his eyes. I never get the chance. A heavy silence settled over the room. The timestamp continued counting forward. Iumektheinai Fediun. 159:02. 9:03. Then something changed. A shadow crossed the far end of the hallway. It moved too quickly to...
Quickly to identify. Everyone saw it. No one spoke. Ayan swallowed hard. There was someone there! Hyunjin leaned closer to the screen. I saw it too. The hallway became still again. Only the faint flicker of an old ceiling lamp illuminated the door. Bang-chan noticed something else. The silver key in his hand had become warm. Not slightly warm. Hot. He nearly dropped it. What? The engraved number? 27 glowed faintly for a brief moment before returning to normal. Felix immediately stepped backward. It's happening. What is? The countdown. Bang-chan looked at the clock. 11:59:37. The 7th day ends at midnight. Nobody breathed. The seconds felt impossibly loud. 45. 46. 47. Every member unconsciously stared between the television and the wall clock. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. Not a single car passed the street. Even the city lights beyond the window seemed strangely dim. Then, the hallway on the television changed. The wooden door slowly creaked open by itself. No hand touched it. No person appeared. Just darkness waiting beyond the doorway. A cold shiver ran through everyone. Han whispered. It opened. Felix's face turned completely pale. No. The timestamp reached 11:59:58. A deep, metallic sound echoed through the speakers. Once, twice. Then midnight arrived. The screen suddenly went black. For 2 long seconds, nothing happened. Everyone stood frozen. Without warning, white words appeared across the center of the television. "Welcome back, Felix." No one in the room understood how a place none of them had ever seen seemed to know exactly who he was. The message remained on the television. "Welcome back, Felix." Nobody moved. Nobody even seemed willing to breathe. Hyunjin slowly turned toward Felix, expecting confusion, fear, or disbelief. Instead, he saw something far more unsettling. Recognition. Felix stared at the screen as though he had been expecting those exact words. Bangchan noticed it immediately. "You've seen that message before." Felix didn't answer. His silence was enough. "Felix!" A long pause. Then he nodded. "Only once." "When?" "In my dreams." The room grew colder. Changbin rubbed his arms. "That's impossible." "I wish it were." Felix's voice sounded distant. "In every dream, the hallway appears first. Then the door opens. Then those words appear." He swallowed hard. "That's always when I wake up." Lee No studied the television. "But this time you didn't wake up." Felix slowly shook his head. "No." A sharp electronic tone suddenly echoed from the television. The black screen flickered again. The words disappeared. Another line of text began typing itself across the display, one letter at a time. "The key belongs to you." The members watched in stunned silence. Another sentence appeared. "Return what you took." Han frowned. "What did you take?" Felix looked genuinely confused. "I don't know." The final sentence appeared. "You have 1 hour." The screen instantly went black. This time it stayed black. The television shut itself off. Silence returned. Only the ticking of the wall clock filled the dorm. 12:01 a.m. Bangchan looked at Felix. "You don't know what they're talking about?" Felix's breathing remained uneven. "I swear." His eyes filled with frustration. "I don't remember taking anything." Hyunjin stepped closer. "Then maybe someone wants you to believe you did." Before Felix could answer, his phone vibrated inside his pocket. Everyone heard it. The screen lit up. Unknown number. No message. No caller ID. Only one incoming call. Felix hesitated. Bangshan nodded. "Put it on speaker." With trembling fingers, Felix answered. For several seconds, there was only static. Then a calm voice spoke. Not loud. Not angry. Almost gentle. "You're late." Felix froze. "Who are you?" A brief silence followed. "You promised you would come back." "I've never met you." "You don't remember." The voice sounded strangely disappointed. "But you will." The call ended. No goodbye. No explanation. Only silence. Everyone stared at Felix. His hands were shaking so violently that he nearly dropped the phone. Then Seungmin noticed something on the lock screen. There wasn't a wallpaper before. Felix looked down. His blood ran cold. The wallpaper had changed by itself. It showed the same narrow hallway from the television. The same old wooden door. But this time the door was fully open. Inside the darkness stood a single figure. Its face couldn't be seen. Yet one detail was unmistakable. The figure was wearing the exact same silver necklace that Felix had worn every day for years. Felix instinctively stepped backward until his shoulders touched the wall. His phone slipped from his trembling fingers and landed softly on the carpet. Nobody rushed to pick it up. Every member remained frozen, staring at the wallpaper that had somehow replaced Felix's usual lock screen. The hallway, the open door, the motionless figure. Hyunjin slowly bent down and picked up the phone. He enlarged the image. The silver necklace around the figure's neck was unmistakable. A thin chain with a tiny crescent-shaped pendant. The exact necklace Felix had received years ago. Hyunjin looked up. Where did this necklace come from? Felix instinctively touched the pendant resting against his chest. His expression slowly changed. I don't know. Everyone stared at him. Bangchan frowned. What do you mean you don't know? I've always had it. You've worn it since trainee days, Han said. Felix nodded. I know. So who gave it to you? Felix closed his eyes. I can't remember. That answer unsettled everyone more than they expected. Most people remembered gifts that carried sentimental value. Yet Felix couldn't recall where the necklace had come from. Not even a vague memory. Nothing. Lee No stepped
Closer. Take it off. Felix hesitated. I've never taken it off. Never? He slowly shook his head. I tried once. His fingers unconsciously tightened around the pendant. The chain wouldn't open. Changbin blinked. What do you mean? The clasp. Felix swallowed. It doesn't exist. The members exchanged confused looks. Hyunjin carefully examined the necklace. His eyes widened. There isn't one. Everyone gathered around. The chain looked completely seamless. No clasp, no joint, no opening. It circled Felix's neck like a single piece of silver. Bang Chan gently touched the pendant. It felt unusually cold, almost icy. Then, the pendant vibrated. Just once, a faint pulse spread through the metal. Felix gasped and grabbed his chest. For an instant, flashes exploded across his vision. A dim corridor, a child crying, a wooden door, someone whispering his name. Felix, the voice echoed inside his mind. Another image appeared. A young boy, no older than 8, running through the same hallway. His face remained hidden, but the silver necklace around his neck reflected the flickering lights. The boy reached door 27. He stopped. Slowly, he turned toward someone standing behind him. I'll come back. The memory shattered. Felix staggered forward, nearly collapsing. Bang Chan caught him before he hit the floor. Felix? His breathing became rapid. He struggled to form the words. I saw a child. Hyunjin knelt beside him. Who was he? Felix looked up, tears gathering in his eyes. His voice trembled. I think it was me. Silence filled the dorm once more. No one questioned him. No one dismissed it as stress or imagination. The fear in Felix's eyes was too real. Then another vibration came from his phone. Not a call. Not a message. A notification appeared without any app name. Only 3 words. Memory recovered, 1%. Before anyone could react, the screen flashed white. A new photograph appeared. This one wasn't the hallway. It showed 8 children standing together in front of an old brick building. Their faces were blurred, except one. The child standing in the center looked unmistakably like a young Felix. And beside him, someone had written a single sentence in faded black ink. Only one of them remembered leaving. Morning arrived quietly, but none of the members had slept. The rain had stopped, and the first rays of sunlight slipped through the dorm windows, making everything that had happened during the night feel almost impossible to believe. The television was off. Felix's phone had returned to normal. The mysterious notifications were gone. Only one thing remained unchanged. The silver key. It rested on the living room table, perfectly still, as if it had never glowed or grown warm. Bang Chan looked around at the exhausted faces of the members before turning to Felix. We're going to find the truth. Felix stared at the key for a long moment before gently pushing it away. No. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Hyunjin frowned. What do you mean? Felix smiled faintly. Not the forced smile he had worn for weeks. A genuine one. I've spent so much time chasing answers that I forgot something important. He looked at each member one by one. I wasn't alone. Silence filled the room. The envelopes, the key, the hallway. Maybe they're real. He paused. Or maybe they're memories trying to remind me of something I've already survived. Lee No crossed his arms. So you're giving up? Felix slowly shook his head. I'm letting go. He picked up the silver necklace hanging around his neck. For years he had believed it was a burden, a reminder of something missing. Now it felt different. Whatever had happened in his forgotten past had shaped him into the person. Standing there today, a person surrounded by people who cared enough to stay. Beside him through fear, uncertainty, and silence. Bang Chan placed a reassuring hand on Felix's shoulder. You never had to carry it by yourself. Felix nodded. I know that now. For the first time in weeks, the heavy tension inside the dorm disappeared. Changbin laughed softly, breaking the silence. So, breakfast? Everyone smiled. Even Hyunjin let out a relieved sigh. Life slowly returned to normal. Practices continued. Concerts filled with cheering fans followed. The mysterious envelopes never arrived again. The unknown number never called. The television never turned on by itself. Weeks later, while cleaning the dorm, Felix opened a forgotten storage box. Inside lay the torn pieces of the final envelope. He stared at them quietly. Instead of trying to piece them back together, he carried them outside. Under the warm afternoon sunlight, He placed the fragments into a small metal container. The paper curled into ash as the fire consumed every last piece. When the flames disappeared, Felix felt something inside him disappear as well. Not his memories, not his past, his fear. That evening, the members gathered on the dorm rooftop to watch the sunset. The city glowed beneath a sky painted with shades of gold and orange. Hyunjin leaned against the railing. "Do you ever think we'll know what Room 27 really was?" Felix smiled while watching the horizon. "Maybe. And if we never do?" He looked at the people beside him, his teammates, his family. "Then I'm okay with that." Bang Chan smiled proudly. "Some mysteries don't exist to be solved. They exist to remind us how far we've come." Felix quietly touched the silver pendant around his neck. It no longer felt cold. It no longer carried fear, only gratitude. As the sun disappeared beyond the skyline, Felix realized that the greatest truth he had been hiding was never inside the envelopes, the key, or the mysterious hallway. It was the belief that he had to face everything alone. He had been wrong, and that realization changed everything.